Hello, you guys. It's Joni for Freedom Village, doing the interviews you know you want to hear. I'm here with Rick White of Guilty Pleasures. Say hello to the people.
Hello, people.
So, what I want to know from you tonight is, how long have you been doing music?
I've been doing music probably about 30 years at least. So.
At least.
At least. Could be more. Could be a lot
so,
more.
What's the most interesting thing that you found out about yourself being a musical artist?
I think one of the biggest things is that growing up, I felt more like an introvert, but being a musician has forced me into being a little more outgoing and having to try to connect with people.
Oh, kind of like a Sasha Fierce?
Something like that.
But for men, don't get it twisted. So, Guilty Pleasures, it's a lovely band. You guys have an awesome sound.
Thank you.
Where are you guys based out of?
We're based out of the D.C. area. Most of the members are from Maryland, but we have a few that are from D.C. originally.
Okay. So, local musician doing your thing. Do you guys ever tour, hit up other areas in the country?
Unfortunately, we haven't had an opportunity to do that, but that's something that we're actively pursuing.
Oh, it's coming. You guys deserve it. Some people in some other areas need to hear this. So, you produce, you
Yes.
write, you
Yes.
play the bass.
Yes.
Which one of those is like your main thing? What's your jam?
My first love, my jam, is writing.
Okay.
That's where I find the most joy, get the most pleasure out of, and with producing and playing bass comes second and third, respectively.
Do you ever have like an emotional connection with the song to where you don't really want to give it to nobody? You're like, this is my song.
No, actually, I have not, surprisingly enough. Usually, I write from the perspective of someone else. So if I'm out and I hear someone say something or they're conveying a personal thought, I might hear it and say, oh, that might make a good song. And so it's personal to the degree that I know where it originated, but it's not so personal that I feel like I'm apprehensive about sharing it.
Okay, that's good. So, when you were younger, give me just like one musical influence as far as like a bass player and like a producer that you really kind of try to channel maybe when you're doing your thing.
Well, from a producer standpoint, I would have to say Quincy Jones. He was my favorite back then. He still is number one as far as producers go. I mean, I have a lot of other favorites that but none of them to me come close to Quincy Jones. But in terms of bass, I have so many influences. When I was coming up, I wanted to be a studio musician. So a lot of the guys that influenced me are people that most average listeners have never heard of. There's a gentleman named James Jamerson who did a lot of the Motown stuff. It's like people know that music. If you heard it through the grapevine, if you hear Bernadette, or if you hear My Girl, it's like, oh yeah, I know that bass line, but if you ask somebody who's playing that bass line, they wouldn't be able to tell you. But it was James Jamerson. So he's one of the guys that really influenced me.
Okay. And we had a wonderful live performance from you guys earlier today. That was awesome. What would you say is the most important thing to remember when you're doing a live show?
To not lose your connection with the audience. It's when you're dealing with a lot of individuals on the stage. There's a lot of moving parts, so it's very easy to get distracted. And being a musical director, I have to be responsible for making sure that we count in the songs correctly, and that everybody knows what we're supposed to be playing. If somebody has to turn up or turn down, I have to do all that. But at the same time, I have to keep my connection with the audience so that they don't feel like, well, he's not paying that much attention to us, and we're here to see them. So you kind of have to, balance that out.
Okay, you got to get the sound right, but you got to keep the show going.
Exactly.
Right. That's hard sometimes.
Yeah, it's difficult.
It's hard. As far as bass and producing, that's a whole lot. Do you find that a lot of musicians are eclectic that way, or are more people like one-shot Charlies?
There are a lot of musicians that do both extremely well. I mean, in terms of playing their instrument and producing, but you're always going to find people that where their talent leans more toward one direction or the other. I can't honestly say that I'm better at one than the other, because I like them. I prefer writing, but I mean, I think I'm just as good a bass player. So.
I think that's that introvert in you.
Yeah, it could be.
You want to stay behind the little pen and paper. Not the little pen and paper, because I love writing too, but this ain't about me, it's about you. So, just a couple more questions, like your musical influences, we talked about that. A band, you said your band sometimes can have at max like 8 members. Sometimes you run with a smaller crew, depending on what type of show you're doing. How important is it that everybody kind of vibes together? I know there's like conflict sometimes. There's got to be.
Well, fortunately, with my group, we haven't had that issue with conflict. A lot of the guys that I work with, I perform with in a lot of different bands, so we have chemistry. So I don't have any concerns about whether or not we'll be able to vibe or not, because we already know that we can look at each other and give each other like silent signals about what we're going to do next without even having to say anything. So.
Oh, I always think that's cool. Well, you got any projects coming up you want to let us know about?
Yes, I'm working on the second Guilty Pleasures album right now. I'm not sure when it's coming out, so just getting started on it, but hopefully it'll be out real soon.
All right, and that'll do it for Rick White of Guilty Pleasures, Freedom Village. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. All right, so this is our last song of the night. So we'd like to thank you all for coming out and support this event and support us.
Yes, indeed. So, you are the beautiful, great audience. Hey, ladies. You ever have that guy that just makes you expose all of you? And you just can't help it? You try to keep it all tucked inside, but it don't work. That's what this song is about. Come on! Put your hands together for me, ladies and gentlemen. Come on! Come on! It goes a little something like this. Things are getting kind of crazy. You're keeping me
Before we go, I want to introduce the members of the Guilty Pleasures. Start with my lovely vocal assistants. To our far right, your far left, please give it up for Miss Jerica White. Next to her, we call her Steph Lover. Give it up for Steph Lover. On keys, I call him the prodigy. He's a Grammy Award nominee, a Berkeley College graduate. He knows and plays everything. Please give it up for Mr. Jamal Orr. On guitar, we have Mr. Dwayne Lee. Alright, last but not least, the GP family, Guilty Pleasures, y'all. Starting with the First Lady of Guilty Pleasures. Please give it up for the lovely Miss Micah Chevalier.
Thank you.
And my main man, holding it down on the front line. Please give it up for my brother, Mr. Kal-El Gross. On drums, my brother from another mother. Please give it up for Mr. Ben Jones.
And ladies and gentlemen, last but definitely not least, the head of the band, writer, producer, and the reason why we are here, Mr. Rick White.